Okay, today I'm going to show you how to make a basic bodysuit, and then I'm also going to have offshoot videos for how to do certain adaptations to it, but this is the basic. So as you can see, I've already got my pieces cut out. I've got the front, I've got the two back pieces. Because it's a very pale pink, I'm going to be lining it. Due to what this bodysuit's going to become, I recommend bonding the lining. I'm going to have different lining videos coming up, but for now, I'm going to just bond this to the lining. So I'm going to be spraying the wrong side of the fabric with some temporary spray adhesive, and I'll be right back. So I've sprayed this part with just a temporary spray adhesive. And that's the wrong side of the fabric. Both the bodysuit was cut so that the greatest degree of stretch is going across the body. And I've laid the lining out so that the greatest degree of stretch is going this way as well. And now we just have the fun of placing and pressing. You want to be sure not to stretch the lining or the outer as you do this. And because it's temporary, it basically makes a like a post-it note out of your fabric. So you can pick it up and lay it down again if needed. And just gently smooth it all out. It helps if you can have the lining as smooth as possible before you put it down, but it will kind of drag as you put this down. So that's that. Just press down. Make sure you don't have anything stuck underneath it. Like any bits of fabric or whatever will get stuck. And there you go. So then you just cut this out and repeat with the back pieces. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the lining cut out. It's temporarily bonded here. It's not super sticky. It's enough to hold it together. So what we're going to do first is line up our right sides of the back pieces together. Smooth everything out. And I'm going to take that to my serger. You don't need a serger for this. You can use a regular sewing machine and zigzag. Check my blog or the other videos for how to do that. But what we're going to do first is sew down the center back seam. Okay, so I've got this set to a 3 out of the 4, so it's a moderately long but not long stitch. I've got it relatively wide. That's all going to be personal preference. And I've got it for neutral over here. You can pin your pieces together if you like. I generally don't bother. I'm far too klutzy for using pins. So the nice thing about lining it the way I do with the bonding to the fabric is that it treats it as one piece of fabric. So you're sewing a front to back rather than a front outside to back outside with a front lining and a back lining sandwiched in. Or I guess sandwiched in between the linings. Okay, so here we've got the back seam sewn on the back of the bodysuit. We're going to flip it open and lay it as smooth as possible. Then we're going to take the front piece, which is also bonded to the lining, and place it down, right side down, over that, lining up the shoulders and the sides and the bottom. Now I'm going to sew the side seams, the shoulder seams, and the crotch seam all together. You can pin and do them in rounds if you want. I just basically start at one and go the whole way around. So that's what we're going to do. So I've sewn the side, shoulder, and crotch seams on this. I'm just going to cut my threads because I did it in one pass. Good enough. And then we're going to flip it right side out. Now I like to work right side out when I'm doing elastic. Your mileage may vary, but this is how I teach people. So you're going to want to consult my video on how to apply elastic because it's got a lot more in-depth information than I'm going to bother putting in this one so as to not duplicate your time. But what we're going to do is measure our elastic from about the hip here. So if you look the high point here, so we're going to go from here to the seam and double it over. Then we're going to use that as a pattern to cut a second piece for the other leg. Okay, so I've got my machine set here to the longest stitch and a relatively wide seam. And starting on what will be the front of the bodice, the bodysuit, I'm going to apply my elastic. Again, I cover this in way more depth in my other video, but I'll just give you the overview. So we're sewing it to the front here, and I'm going to pull a little bit. So if you see this length, it's going to be a little bit shorter than the actual outfit is being sewn into. I'm going to continue that at the front. I pull it a little bit tighter on the upper part of the hip here. Then I take the remaining elastic, match it up with the front, hold it overlapped, stretch it, and then stretch it more. There we've got one leg elastic sewn in. So now I'm just going to go from the other side and do the same thing. But now we're starting at the hip, because I like to work with the front piece first. So again, we go a little bit tighter on the hip. As you can see, it's making it a lot easier where I bonded that lining. We're going here, a little bit shorter than the front piece. And I like to take the front part and push it down over the back so that the seam folds back in on both ends. So again, you take the end of the elastic, overlap it with the beginning, stretch to match, stretch more. Get rid of that. There you see we've got the elastic set in. Next we're doing the armholes. Same sort of idea. Lay your pattern out flat and you're going to measure from the armpit to the shoulder just straight across. And that's going to give you enough negative ease is what it's called that this will be a stretch. So there to there. Fold in half, and cut a second one for the other arm. I like to start at the shoulder seam when I'm doing my elastic, and then I'm going to serge it in the same way that I did for the leg. So starting at the shoulder seam, I got that going. I fold it in half, and then what I do is I hold this half to the armpit seam, the side seam there. And just stretch it to match, and then keep stretching, and sew it down. And again, if you don't have a serger, it's no big deal. You'll just do this with a zigzag. There's one. Okay, so I've got two arm elastics sewn in. Now we're going to do the neckline. So from there, I go straight across to the shoulder here, and then I go from that shoulder to the center point of the front. And then fold that in half. I only need to cut the one because we're only doing one. So I recommend folding it in half and pinning the center to the center front. And then just follow it around so it doesn't flip, and hold to the center back seam. And if it does flip, you can flip it back. It's all good. So, I'm going to start that out. Now, ignore where the seam is. You're going to go halfway points. So this is the halfway point of the seam. And then pull that and just stretch to match. And then again, make sure that your seam's facing the same way for both sides. And now if you can, I like to just stretch a little bit for the shoulder part of this, so that there's extra stretch here. So it's extra tight across the front, just where that's on a curve. So again, we're going to hold this to the center back, overlap, find like the halfway points, stretch to match. Overlap again, and I'm going to stretch it just a little bit for that second part of the shoulder seam. And pull it in tighter for the curve. And there you go. We've got all of the elastic sewn in the bodysuit. Okay, so now what we're going to do is flip the elastic and stitch it down. I like to use a wide zigzag with like a moderate stitch length. You don't want it too tight and you don't want it too big. That's going to be a matter of personal preference, but if you get it around these settings, and it's going to vary between machine, you'll get a nice clean look on your finished flip. So I like to work with the right side facing up, but I'll show you both ways. So what I do is I pull this tight against the elastic, and I clip my fingers underneath to kind of pull it taut against the elastic. And from there, I just zigzag it, or not. So just as you go, you want to make sure that the fabric is kept tight around the elastic, because otherwise you're going to get big bumps on the outer edge. And the other thing you want to do is you want to aim to stitch close to this edge of the elastic. So because you're stretching the elastic as you go, that's the size of zigzag you're looking for, and it'll condense down when it's not being worn. So that's why I like a good like mid-range stitch length. So we'll just repeat that on the other leg and then the rest of the suit. So that's with the bottom done. So that was stitching from the top. Now, if you do want to stitch from the wrong side, inside out, that's the word I'm looking for, you can do that. It's a little bit more difficult to make sure everything is flat on the front side, but you basically just go like this, and you're pulling this tight and then pulling the elastic down over it and then holding this tight against it so you don't get a rumpling in your seam. So this way makes it easier to make sure that you're actually stitching over the edge here. If you sew too close to the fold, so it becomes the outer side, this will wrinkle and it looks really ugly. So you want to make sure that you're stitching at this edge of it. Anyway, I prefer sewing from the right side up. So I'm just going to go finish that. So there you go. That is our bodysuit.